In this video, I want to go over the Suns' payroll, just project what it's going to be over these next two seasons. They've been on this nice 4-year trajectory where they've gone to the finals, made the playoffs. They've done really well considering the results in the past decade. Yet last season they went as all in as any team I can recall in recent history and had their worst result in that 4-year span. Now, they're going to run it back. James Jones confirmed it. They're not trading Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal because the alternative isn't great. And I'm sure you've heard all the postmortems about the Suns that they're kind of screwed and they're not going to be able to do anything. And down the line, this is really going to hurt them. And yeah, it's most likely true. And the big reason for that, as far as this season, they're just stuck with this roster for the most part, for better or worse. They can't really do that many trades. They can't take in more salary than they're sending out. They can't combine players in trades. They could really just sign minimum players, re-sign their own guys. They don't even have any mid-level exception. And ownership so far has been super content on paying a lot of money on this roster. They've paid a lot these last two seasons. And if they keep this roster, that's what the roster is expected to be, it's going to be a record-breaking payroll. So this is the Phoenix Suns payroll heading into next season. And very expensive rosters, you could see it's going to exceed 300 million. The luxury tax payment alone is going to be over 100 million. And that's before they re-sign Royce O'Neale. Royce O'Neale is their most significant free agent. He is currently extension eligible, but it sounds like he's going to hit free agency to re-sign at a higher amount. But for the most part, this payroll is going to be super big. And I think that this is more or less what it's going to be. Maybe they can make some changes, but the biggest thing is Bradley Beal. That is not getting moved. There you might hear some trade scenarios out there where maybe the Suns could turn his $50 million contract into multiple players. And I went through every single team. I went through it multiple times. Just like, can this team, does it make sense for them to do it? But no, even without the no trade clause, I don't think he has a market at all. I think they're stuck with him until the bitter end of that deal. So they're well above the first apron, the second apron as well. So they can't make any trades. Like I mentioned, they can't take on more salary. They can't combine multiple players. So if Mike Budenholzer tells us, hey, let's see if the Bucks would take Yusuf Nurkic and Nazir Little and some draft picks for Brook Lopez, he would really help us with our rim protection. They're not allowed to do that. All they could really do is hopefully trade Yusuf Nurkic or Grayson Allen, who can't be traded for 6 months. He just signed a big extension, and try to get multiple players back that make less. So their options are super limited in that regard. So I'm going to go over a couple contract situations. First, Kevin Durant. He's got 2 years left on the maximum extension that he signed with the Nets 3 years ago, and he'll be able to extend for up to 1 year, projected at just under 60 million. That's all he's limited to because of the over 38 rule. And if I'm Kevin Durant, I think at this stage in his career, as you enter your late 30s, if you're presented with a maximum level extension, you got to take it every opportunity you have. And then Royce O'Neale. He's the Suns' most significant free agent. They acquired him mid-season from the Nets for 3 second-round picks. He's currently extension eligible for 2 years, 20 million. And I saw in an interview, I think it was a post-game interview, he said that he plans on becoming a free agent so he could presumably get more years and a higher annual salary than that extension he's currently limited to. Now, here's a little projection I put. It's slightly more than his extension amount and slightly less than the full non-taxpayer mid-level, which starts at just under 13 million. So this is something I could see both sides agreeing to, something in that range, but the Suns cannot afford to lose him. They would otherwise, they wouldn't be able to replace him, and they just have to hope they find someone good for the minimum. And then when you put it all together with Royce O'Neale's salary, I projected, and one more player at the minimum to get up to 14 players, their roster exceeds 400 million. The luxury tax payment alone almost hits 200 million. And these expenses, this payroll would be the most expensive payroll in NBA history. Not even the Warriors spent this much on their recent roster. But as they enter the following season, when they're going to enter the repeater tax in a year when tax rates are going to increase for the higher spenders, at what point does these financial penalties just become plain unsustainable? And just kind of come to why I think that this upcoming season may just be it for this group. But now when you're projecting into 25, 26 and beyond, that's when things get extremely complicated. That's because they're going to enter the repeater tax. It's a designation that's made when a team's been paying the tax 3 of the last 4 years. When that happens, you start paying much higher luxury tax rates. But not only that, beginning that season, the new CBA is now implementing even higher tax rates on top of that, just in general for teams that are in the deeper levels. So all that is starts to make their luxury tax payments exponentially higher. So if they still have, mostly everybody that they're projected to have in this upcoming season, the big three, Nurkic, Allen, I could put Royce O'Neale at that projected amount I came up with. Once they get the 14 players, their luxury tax payment would be over 300 million alone, and the payroll and tax combination is $550 million. I don't see them spending this much money for anything less than a title in this upcoming season. And because of this just insane payments projection, I think it's then more likely that one of Kevin Durant or Devin Booker are moved sometime before the season even begins. Even without these enormous expenses, the shelf life of these types of super teams in modern vintage has been pretty short, like around 1.5 to 2 years. You got the LeBron Heat team, that was 4 years. The KD Warriors, 3 years. The KD Nets, I suppose, 1.5 to 2 years when you factor in that he was injured for one of those seasons. And obviously, a rocky start to the season could push the buttons to really get the wheels rolling on potential trades to some of the players at the top. But when you also consider that they just are gonna have such a hard time improving the roster by being way over both apron levels, it's just gonna be really hard to continue this path of having 3 players making over 150 million combined and everyone else for the most part making like around the minimum. I won't get into any hypotheticals for Kevin Durant and Devin Booker unless we start to hear those types of reporting rumors that they could be pushing their way out. But either way, with all this considered, I think this truly is a make or break season for the Suns.